Hey, this is going to be a FAQ type video for the comments in my shorts, which are mainly lineup related or like basically all lineups. And I want to talk about some of the questions I get and talk about why I do the lineups I do and all that kind of stuff. Okay, we'll start with the first one. I'm not going to be reading all of these out, but I will read this first one out, which is that's way too complicated. You can literally just swing a molly through the window in B main. Yeah, so I think I get this comment or variations of this comment maybe a bit too much because realistically the answer is just the definition of the phrase lineup, which is to be ready or prepared for something or to move something relative to another thing's position, right? And that's what lineup is, right? In Valorant, you're prepared with the lineup, and the actual lineup itself is you moving a piece of utility into another position. That's obviously relative to the round, right? So you're moving it like a post plant molly, you would be mollying the spike, right? It's easy. And the reason why I've kind of said the definition is because I want to transfer it to real life situation, right? So say if you're a bricklayer and you want to lay bricks, you're going to line up every brick to be in the correct place, right? And that's going to make it consistent that the wall is going to be good every single time, rather than you just randomly placing the bricks on the wall and then sometimes the wall will be good, sometimes the wall will be bad, right? It's exactly the same thing. And that's way too complicated, honestly, is decently fair criticism. It could be too complicated. I am definitely someone that wants to be as simple as I can with my lineups. And realistically, yeah, this could have been a very complicated one. I'm pretty sure I got this one from Boostio. But yeah, there you go. So the second comment I have is don't tell me that the UI relative position is different on every single monitor and resolution and aspect ratio. So this is true, right, in premise, where the resolution and aspect ratio does affect how the UI scales. So that means, or like the UI scales differently to resolution. So it basically means that if you scale your resolution down from 1920 by 1080 or up from 1920 by 1080, then the UI will scale at a different rate. So it basically means the UI will change position. So what's happening there, and what you guys need to know basically is if you see a lineup in 1920 by 1080 like mine, then you need to try and convert it into yours. And so briefly, I did actually change my resolution from 1920 by 1080 to 1280 by 960. And I used to watch like Zeppa for my lineups there because he had the same resolution as me. And I was doing KO lineups at the time as well. So I was getting my KO lineups from Zeppa basically a lot of the time. And those lineups I actually still use on 1920 by 1080. They don't work in the same way. I'm not aiming at the same place, but they will work very, very similarly. You'll be able to line up very, very similarly. It does take extra work on your part to play on a different resolution from the lineup you've seen, but that's just something you can do. And it was something I was also doing when I was on a different res to the standard res, which is 1920 by 1080 for Valorant. The next comment is, damn, didn't know Dizzy had lineups. And what I replied to this with was, Dizzy lineups are rarely needed, but when you can guarantee info on side like this one, it can be important to use it. And so I wanted to focus on the Dizzy lineups are rarely needed, because for the majority of your gameplay on Valorant, you're probably not going to be using lineups. Lineups are rarely needed in general anyway. They are a situational sort of aspect of your gameplay that you don't need all the time. And that doesn't mean by me making all these videos about lineups on my shorts that I'm telling you that you need to use them every game. You don't. There's plenty of lineups that I have that I have only used like 3 or 4 times because they are so situational. And I don't force myself to use those lineups. I actually just use them when they're needed, right? And they can be very, very impactful when the situation arises, but they're not. The situation doesn't always arise, so I don't use them that much. So the next comment is who and how found these. And the who is the easy part. It's me, or it's going to be a pro player who I'll mention in the description about where I got this from. Their streams and also pro games are really good places to get lineups from if you want to get them yourself as well. And the how is a bit different. So the how can be different depending on where I'm getting them from. The first thing is that if I want to make an original lineup, then I need to know what the purpose of the lineup is going to be straight away. I don't go into a custom game thinking I'm going to think of the reason later. I have to know what the lineup actually aims to do before I even enter the custom game. Is how I treat it, right? And that means that I do get effective lineups, and I do get lineups that can be very complicated, or ones that can, well, not exactly complicated, but they can fall in a complicated way. They can bounce off complicated things or look very complicated in general because of the way they like get across the map or something. But in reality, the concept was already found, so I already kind of knew what I wanted. And it was a lot easier to find a lineup that fit that concept than it was to organically come up with the lineup and then fit the concept later. It's a lot easier to find the concept first. So the how for pro players is pretty easy. You just sort of watch their streams or you watch the VCT streams and you can find them that way. Sometimes they're going to need some tweaking as well, because sometimes they have a different resolution. So sometimes, and also especially VCT streams, they obviously stream in 1920 by 1080, but the player themselves are not in that resolution. So sometimes you do have to do some figuring out to kind of like bridge the gap and find exactly how they're done. Or sometimes you just find a different way that makes more sense on 1920 by 1080 compared to the resolution they're using. That's kind of it. So the next one is exposed to Bath below heaven, leaving Hookah top boxes, very useless lineup, but better throwing from far spawn. So the reason why this wasn't thrown by far spawn is because I don't think the person that commented this is realizing that this isn't going to be thrown when you're like 1v5. You're going to have teammates that are covering those areas, or that at the very least you're going to have some sort of info in these areas to then throw this. So it comes into the same conversation that I don't throw every lineup every game. So yeah, I'm just not going to throw this if it's not going to be safe for me to throw it. That's simply what it is, right? So if you do see a lineup that is in a weird place, or in a place that you don't think is safe, just ask yourself the simple question: if you have teammates, are these places going to be clear? Or if these places aren't clear, then just don't throw the lineup. Also, the better throwing far from spawn is also a really big trap, because yes, you will be technically safer throwing the lineup. The problem is that you're going to the cost of the lineup then goes up. So the opportunity cost of the lineup goes up in a way that you are putting yourself in a position that you can't follow up. You're putting yourself in a position that only benefits the lineup and nothing else going on in the round. So you're going to be screwing yourself over to make this lineup better. And lineups should be fitting into your gameplay, not the other way around. Okay, so this one is, bro, just go learn smoke lineups. No need for random ass, annoying ass abilities. So the thing is with this one is that this is a Razorvine that was going to land in a smoke, so it benefits from having a smoke already where it was going to be placed, and it's going to be used as an anti-flood one. The problem is, this is like demonstrates a problem with potentially the way I do my short format, is that sometimes I can't fully explain why exactly I'm using it sometimes, because I kind of expect you to have a level of like understanding about what this molly actually does sometimes, and I think that is something that I need to get better at. I need to actually show why I'm actually using this ability. And also, side note, if abilities are annoying for the enemy team, that probably means they're pretty good. Okay, so this comment I actually did quite a big reply to at the time, and I'm not going to go over the whole comment, but what I'm going to say is the first line: jump peek or jiggle and shoot it. We've already gone through that, which is lineups meant to be consistent. Jump peeking and jiggling is not going to be consistent. And I really want to talk about this line as well, which is these lineups take too much time to execute in high level play and won't be useful in low elo lobbies. I think this is like a really big misconception, is that lineups take too much time. I don't take that much time when I'm doing lineups. And on top of that as well, in high level play, there's a lot of lineups that are weighted on. This is part of what I've actually replied to as well, is that a lot of the time in pro play, you see them lining up the lineup for like 3 seconds past when they've actually lined it up, because they're waiting for the correct timing to actually throw it. And so they're not going to waste too much time in high level play doing this. The other part is it won't be useful in low elo lobbies, and to an extent he's not wrong, right? I think lineups definitely have diminished effects in low elo lobbies, because for the most part people aren't going to be playing in an expected way, and lineups are just more of a supplement to gameplay and can help you extend your gameplay rather than actually being a core component in your gameplay. So therefore it's probably not that good to focus on it. So I wouldn't really focus on lineups in low elo. Okay, so this is the last comment, which is, you don't need lineups for Teo, it's mostly just common sense and a basic understanding of math. So we focus on the common sense part first, which is essentially having good practical knowledge and practical experience to make good judgments on the subject that you're judging, essentially, or making judgments in. So I think that if you are used to using Teo stuff, yes, lineups are going to be the situational thing they normally are, right? That they are just going to be the situational things that allow you to be a bit more consistent when you would like it. But I don't really know if this person is using common sense in that way, or if they're using it in a way that's common knowledge, or maybe more of a natural sense, where if you've played Teo for a couple of games, you understand how to do it, which isn't completely false, but not to a point where you can replace lineups. And by the way, no one can replace lineups. They're literally there to remove human error, and last time I checked, I think everyone playing Valorant is human. Maybe. At the very least, pro players and other high elo players are still using lineups, so they can't really be that replaceable if the best in the game are still using them. And I want to talk about the basic understanding of math, and I don't know if this guy has a protractor taped to his screen, but I don't think it's a basic understanding of like calculating all the angles and things, like making it as big brain as that. What it really is you have seen it happen multiple times, and then you're able to also visualize what the bounces will look like. And that is not something that will remove human error, but it will be something that can help you be a bit more consistent when you're free throwing stuff. Okay, so that's it for the video. I'd love to know what you guys think, especially as well if you are someone that I've talked about your comment. I'd love to know if you think that it's helped you or not, because I am just trying to help. So I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one.